to Big Blend Radio's Nature Connection Show, a podcast covering nature, wildlife, science, and the environment. So welcome, everyone. Dr. Amy Stark is back on the show. She is a clinical psychologist and an author based in California. And she was on our show about 6 years ago talking about her fairy godmother next door book series. It's an illustrated children's book series. And today she's joining us because she's got a brand new book out. It's called A Magical Loveliness of Ladybugs, a wonderful book for families to get together and learn about the beauty of nature and ladybugs, which are beneficial insects in our world. So I encourage you to go to our website, dramystark.com. It's linked in the episode notes, but welcome back. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Doing good. Last time we talked about monarch butterflies, and now we get to talk about ladybugs. So you like insects, don't you?
Because I love gardening, you have to know who the beneficial guys are and make sure you're attracting them.
Yeah, that's right. But, as a psychologist, I wanted to ask the importance of children's books today. I know they can get them on Kindle and everything, but actually having your hand on books and not necessarily being on a phone, is this something beneficial for families to do as a project together? Not only maybe in getting them inspired to garden, but to actually have story time together with an actual book.
I think it's absolutely essential. The APA guidelines, that's from my profession, suggest that kids should not be on screen time for more than an hour every day. And that's after school. And kids don't go outside. They don't play enough. They don't engage with other children. They're not going outside in nature unless their parents are promoting that. Everyone's on their device. When you go out in nature, that's when you have all the adventures of the world out there. And not only that, usual benchmarks for kids are that all the way up through 5th grade, their parents should be reading to them at least 20 minutes a day. And when you've got an actual book and you can touch it and turn the pages and look at it and talk about what's on the page and talk about the story, it's really, really important. And it gives valuable time about reading, not only just calling out the names of the words, but actually comprehending the story, having your own ideas, figuring out what you could do in your yard to attract ladybugs or go out and be a part of nature. And it's not just just a normal thing. Going out in nature is normal and thrilling and exciting, and teaching that the world out there, the natural world, not the world online, is equally exciting as the one online. That's essential too.
Well, I was wondering about that because I know that the way things are built, they're built around creating dopamine moments like that make us all excited. So when you get a notification and you get that ding, you get stimulated, right? As a human. Now, it's kind of how casinos work. That's why I look at phones and all of that like little mini casinos, honestly. And I'm not knocking casinos. I'm just saying those ding, ding, dings. And, and then the dings could go the wrong way. So you could be swinging high and low and high and low. So with kids, like going out in nature, to me, that's like normal dopamine. Am I making sense on that part? Like I want real dopamine. I don't want the fake controlled dopamine.
Well, and you don't want to be overly stimulated all the time. And I tell parents in my practice, you want your kids to use their device. It's a wonderful tool, but you don't want them to be so addicted that if they set it down to have dinner, to do their homework, to do something else, they can't stop. When you're crying and carrying on, that means you're addicted. That means it becomes an addiction, not like a useful tool. So you don't want that. And you want to have those moments where you put it in balance. It's a wonderful thing. I don't want to say don't use devices. They're wonderful, but you got to balance it out with other things. And you can't keep super stimulated all the time. That's not even good for you. So further problem is if you're on your device an hour before you go to bed, you can't sleep because you're stimulated. Then what do kids do? They keep it plugged in right next to their bed. Oh, in case their friend calls, in case something happens, you need restful time, restful downtime, and that has to be valuable too. So you need times when you're on your device and times when you're not. And you got to make sure, like kids, I see so many kids in my practice who are getting ready to drive. And I'll say, great, could you give the directions from your house to here? No, I'm on my phone. So you don't know how to get here? Well, I would look it up. You've been here over 10 times. I would think you would know how to get here. Maybe you need to start putting your phone down because guess what? When you're driving, you're going to have to put your phone down.
Yeah.
So, you can't use it so that you're not paying attention to the outside world, but you should use it. I'm not one of those throwaway old devices. I
Right.
understand that they have a purpose and they do give wonderful pieces of information and all of that. Like in my book, it talks about having to go into the World Book Encyclopedia to get information because we didn't have our little
Hmm.
device. But there's a place for it and it needs to be in balance.
Yeah, we were in Erie, Pennsylvania, and we went to Asbury Woods, not Asbury Park with Bruce Springsteen, but Asbury Woods. And they were doing so much education for kids out in nature. And this place has an amazing story. The actual forest was planted by the people that I can't remember their name, but it's our paper that we use as printers on our computer printer. They realized after creating, basically chopping down trees and making paper that they need to start putting it back. So they planted this forest as a beginning of like, hey, we need to do this kind of practice a little bit better. And so anyway, that's a really positive change of events. But I was talking to the executive director who's taking us around, and I'm like, yeah, kids need to just, not have any of these tools, like in a way. I wish we didn't. She goes, no, it's about how you use the phone. So she got me hooked on iNaturalist. And so iNaturalist, you can go in on their little app called Seek and start to identify species like the ladybugs. So to me, there are those ways of using them and they create excitement and education. So I'm all with you on the balance part because I had to learn the balance of you don't just banish them. You use them appropriately.
Yes, it's important. Reading
Yeah.
at night before you go to bed helps you calm down. It
Mm,
gives you a chance to talk to your kid about regular day-to-day things. And
yeah.
and it helps you teach them about understanding and
Mm,
comprehending a story.
mm.
Plus, it turns out mine is true. So that's kind of interesting.
How did that balance? This is really fascinating to me about all the ladybugs. Here she is in her room, your main character, your little girl there, and all of a sudden her room is just a buzz with all these ladybugs. And I've actually been in that situation quite a few times, but not with a native ladybug species. Where Asian lady beetles is what they're called, but they look like a yellowish ladybug, and you'll find them in the fall season in the Appalachian Mountains. And so people there vacuum them. You may sometimes need a shovel to how many come out. It's like these swarms of them in the fall, but they don't do any damage. But I thought, did you have a room full of ladybugs? What inspired this?
Well, what inspired this was it happened in my house when I was growing up. And I came home from school and I opened my bedroom door and there were ladybugs everywhere. The red
Really?
ladybugs on my curtains, on the walls, on my bedspread, on the floor, on the ceiling. Hundreds of ladybugs. And I
That's so
went
cool.
downstairs and I called my mom. And I remember she stood with her hands like on her hips and she could not figure out. She was more like concerned with how are they getting in here? How is this even happening? Why is this happening? Does the windows need to be caulked? What's going on? And I thought it was the best thing that ever happened.
It's cool.
So, you look at that and this is kind of cool. I mean, they don't sting, they don't bite, they don't do something horrible to you. They're really cool. So all the kids in the neighborhood came over and we're all looking at because no one's ever seen that before, like a whole room filled with ladybugs. What is this?
Yeah.
So it was very exciting to me to find out something about them, to try and figure out why they were coming. My mom was more concerned with how did they get in, but why were they coming and what does it mean? And it was in Minnesota where I grew up, where it gets
Oh,
very
okay.
cold, obviously in the winter. So, kind of wondered, is this part of their, what do they do this? Because they live for a year. Some will live for 2 years. So they live for a while. So you're like, oh, are they trying to do something here? Because we get in Minnesota, we have seasons. You would have to actually get the garden ready. You'd put chicken wire over some of the bulbs and leaves and stuff and cover things to protect it from the harshness of the winter that it was going to get. So you just looked at it, is this a prep thing? What is this? We couldn't figure it out. So it did happen. And every day I came home and there were fewer and fewer, and I don't know where they went. There was a crawl space though up between my ceiling and the arched roof. So, years later we figured out maybe they were up there wintering and that was the warmest place that they could go. And then,
Yeah.
whatever, because not only did they come, they came many years. year after year after year. In the fall, they would come. And at the beginning, it was like, oh, exciting. And after a while, my friends were like, okay, again. You know what I mean? No one was as excited as I was.
Yeah.
Because it was just the coolest thing. And I was already gardening. I had a little vegetable garden. I like gardening. So I was already doing my little garden. I was like, oh, they're kind of a good bug. This is a good thing, So it happened year after year after year, just like in my book.
Oh,
And, it's kids don't have most kids know what a ladybug is, though. Most kids do know that. That's one of the bugs they like and enjoy seeing because they don't sting, they don't hurt you, they crawl
mhm.
around, they're cool, but they don't realize their beneficial aspect. So it's important to teach that and go outside and say, hey, how many butterflies can you find in the garden today? Where are they? Can you find them? We want to take care of them. We don't want something bad to happen to them. We don't want to
Mm.
spray. It's a beneficial bug. We want to see this bug. So that's where it came from, is that it actually happened to me year after year after year. And then when I was an adult, it happened in one of my houses where, like, in the fall, and only this time they came into my kitchen, like in the eating area of my kitchen, just completely filled it on the curtains, on drapes, on the ceiling. Okay, then, here they are. And they would
Yes.
go away when they needed to, and okay, fine. It's not like they're hurting anybody. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of how I handled it.
So we've experienced it in North Carolina and in Tennessee. So all in the Smoky Mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountain region. And so again, also in fall. So I think that that's their wintering thing. And, it's like, I think they're cool. I know that the ones I'm talking about are invasive, but really not. They're still beneficial outside of the home. They do not destroy your home. So if it happens, they don't. Some people just freak out and it's just like they're little bugs, but they could be invasive if they're going to be in competition with ladybugs, the native ladybug. And speaking of both of them, they're very beneficial. In fact, and I'm glad we're talking about them because I don't like this part of things. People buy them in packages in like big box stores that have garden sections. And I always thought there's got to be a better way than packaging up these little bugs that want to be free in cellophane. I'm not a fan of that. But let's talk about what makes them so beneficial,
Well, they eat aphids. Aphids can destroy your plants. And
especially roses.
yeah, well, and aphids can even go on milkweed. Although you have to
Oh,
be careful. You don't want to have too many ladybugs because they can also eat monarch eggs. So you got to kind of you want to have your garden in balance, just like anything else, because if they can't find enough to eat, ladybugs will just fly away to a place that they can go to. So you just put a few here, a few there, whatever, and you just let them do their thing and they will come and do their thing. And at any given time, I always have some ladybugs in my garden. For a while out here in California, when they were spraying for fruit fly, we lost our ladybug population because one of the thing that killed the fruit fly killed the ladybugs. But people have done a lot about restoring. Unfortunately, sometimes your way in the little cellophane thing. But at least we got our population going again, so
oh,
that we
okay.
do have ladybugs because the spraying killed them off, and you didn't see any for a while, and now you're like, because I've had them in my garden for a while, I just am used to seeing them. So, you always at one point can find one, two, or three of them out there all the time. And they're doing their job. They're eating aphids. And it harms your plants and it harms milkweed. And it's a good thing to have your garden in balance. Plus, they're fun bugs.
They're pretty.
They're cute to watch. Everyone likes them. They can crawl on you. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to get stung or bitten, and you can interact with them and you go, this is very interesting. And can you see what they're eating? And can you see why they're eating that? I have a garden outside of my little office space here, and I have it's a monarch and a swallowtail habitat out here. So I have what both butterflies like. And kids can always go find something, but there's usually a ladybug out here. And it's not in it a horrible bug that's going to take over the garden. It really does its useful purpose. So I always like to start outside. What can you see? What's in bloom? What does this mean? What time of year does thing bloom? Because even in California, we have seasons and you have to kind of look for the more subtle signs of them, but they're here. And what does this mean? And then I talk about, other things, because before we come in to do a session, I always like to start outside. You know, I,
Yeah.
I also have bluebirds here, and they're up on my balcony. There's a nesting box up there, and they had 3 different sets of babies this year. So, we always like to start, oh, did you see the mom's feeding that up on the, oh, there they are. she's going in there, she's coming out, there she's feeding them, and you see a little head sticking.
So cool.
So just 2 seconds in nature,
Yeah.
2 seconds in nature. Let's look outside. What's going on? What does this
Mhm.
mean? What can you learn? How can you help?
Yeah.
How can you help? Because we spray. Spraying is not the answer. Do not use insecticide.
Mhm.
That's wiping out our monarchs, and it wipes out everybody.
And that's not good for raising food or gardening. I think gardening is really an important thing, even if you only have a balcony garden or if you have to go and do a garden in a community garden setting, right? For families to get together and do gardening, it teaches kids productivity. It gives them something to look forward to, gets them involved in nature, science. Again, the phone is down. But then when they're outside doing this, I think they're learning to be observant, and you learn patience and joy, how they balance hand in hand.
Yeah, because it doesn't happen overnight. I know one of my clients said, "Oh, I love gardening. I've got a gardening game online," but you can't take anything in. When I talked to her about, hey, look, I grew this. Now I can take that in. If you grow stuff, you get a flower, or you get a beautiful pepper, or you get a beautiful radish, or and you can
Mhm.
grow, like, even carnival carrots can grow in a little planter box. I love carnival
Yeah,
carrots because they're so fun, and you're like, oh, look at all those colors.
I
Oh,
love those. Yeah.
and you just take care of them, and you check on them every day. What might they need? If you something, then you use your phone for that. If I can't figure out what it is, take a picture of it. The phone will say, "Oh, it's a blah blah blah, and here's what you do about it." So you can interface with technology about, what is this plant? Where is its origin? Should it look like this? What do I do now? It will help you with that, but it's a real garden,
Mm.
not an online garden where you never get to experience the joy of planting a seed, watering, taking care of it, and seeing it. The same thing with, like, raising a butterfly. You see the milk, you see the caterpillar, and they eat a lot, by the
Mm.
way. They can, like, go through an entire, when you got like 50 caterpillars, there goes your milkweed. And now you're desperate, calling all the other nurseries trying to look for milkweed because there's not enough places. So they egg bomb. They just, boom, once they go someplace, they lay a million eggs in a small space, and it's, rather than spreading it around, because there's not enough milkweed. So everyone's here is encouraged to go home, plant 2 plants of milkweed. The more we have, the better it is for these guys, or we won't see any anymore. That's
Exactly.
how bad it is. The monarch is in dire straits. It's serious. So we're down to, God, in California, it's sad. It's sad.
It's
So
sad.
there's a bunch of monarch moms in Orange County, and they, like, really into it. And, taking them in, taking care of them, making sure, releasing them, have enough milkweed in their area, get all their friends doing milkweed so that we can try and raise our population. But
Yeah.
you don't know any of that if you're online. You're not
Mhm.
helping the world when you're online doing a fake garden. But when you have your own garden, it contributes to your whole family and to your personal well being. And it's grounding.
Mhm.
Having your hands in the soil and your feet in the soil is grounding. And
Yeah,
that's why I
it's
wrote a book about it, because I want people to know to do it. But I also want kids to read. Read a
mm,
book, read a book, read a book, and have parents read to you and discuss the story. And it's not a thing that's going to keep you up at night. It doesn't have scary anything in it. It's just normal nature, which is so enchanting and exciting if you give it a chance.
well, I love this because, we're getting to the holiday season, so books make great gifts. I'm just saying, right? That's a great gift idea. But also, really helping when kids are seeing what is happening with climate change, right? It is, and they're thinking of their future. There's a fear that comes with that. And I think if they're able to go and do something like grow a garden, start growing some native plants, grow your own food that is organic and healthy to eat. Number one, they may start eating their fruits and vegetables because they grew it and it's exciting. And number two, they're feeling like, hey, I can help with this situation that we're in and feel more productive instead of fearful. That we should all have a healthy dose of fear of what's going on in regards to climate change.
Well, I tell kids that if everyone was to pick one project of a way to do better for the world, we would have a better world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be something big. Like I point out, milkweed is not hard.
Mm.
It's a weed, for heaven's sake. So we'll pretty much grow it no matter what you want.
But by the way, let me just say Minnesota does an amazing job. Minnesota, Missouri, and even Iowa, when you come driving down, there's called the historic Jefferson Highway. It's from with that old historic road was built in, well, it's a series of roads, actually. It was started in 1915. It's older than Route 66, but it shares that same pathway through Minnesota down into Iowa and then into Missouri. I got to look at I hope I've got my states right. But as you're driving, it's called the Monarch Highway. And so people, because we had a lot of agriculture in these areas that used a lot of pesticides, people realized, we got to put our pollinator gardens back. So as you're driving this highway, if you stop at a rest area during the spring and summer and even into the fall, they have pollinator gardens on display showing what they're growing and why. But this is the Monarch Highway. And I think that's really cool that people can start thinking about that for where they live, is to put these pollinator gardens, and they all have milkweed, which is gorgeous. And there's so many milkweeds that you can grow. And if you grow the right ones, some of them, like in California, are fire resistant. And you can create a healthy garden that's native plant-based, fire resistant, better for water, easier to grow once they're established. So I say we all need to have pollinator gardens, and we need highways like that. Because, all the asphalt and chemicals that cars put out, all that, we need to put more trees and pollinator gardens.
Yes, we do. There is something we can do, and I point that out to kids. And some of them, a lot of the kids, after I've shown them whatever, and then we talk about other things, obviously, because they're not here about that. But the kids will later say, that's what the call years later. That's one of the things I learned from you, was how important the monarch is. And I, do have milkweed all the time, and they do come. They do need it. I mean, it's one of those, if you build it, they will come. You put milkweed out, they're coming, they're looking for it. And it's really, really important. And you attract hummingbirds and other birds that way too. So so you get those lovely little hummingbirds coming because they really like penta and some of the other pollinator. Yes. And then, you have giant swallowtails, giant eastern swallowtails, stunning butterflies. They're like a creature, and they like rue, dill, fennel. So I have that for them. So kids, whatever it is using the garden at that season, we go out and we look and we talk about it. And then, like I said, you read it in a book and you talk about it and you read and you look for all the ladybugs on all the pages. The Moran Reuter, who did the illustrations of this book.
Well done.
They're beautiful. The illustrations, this is the second book she's done for me. And her work is lovely, just lovely. So you have that to talk about. You talk about it. You talk about the ladybugs. And like I said, I remember my mom was so invested in stopping this problem.
But it's a fun problem. I mean, to me, it's magical. And, and whenever a ladybug lands on us, my mom always goes, that's like a good luck sign.
Yes, it is. It's spiritual. When you look at the spiritual significance, you can look on your device and it will say, luck is coming, something good is coming. And I'm like, wow.
Lady luck. Yeah.
So you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. And the fact that a group of them is called a loveliness, that's wonderful. A loveliness.
Isn't it amazing?
Of ladybugs. I mean, that's what I had in my bedroom, is a loveliness of ladybugs. And they came year after year. And then I went to college and they stopped coming. And my mom's, good, I solved the problem, right? And I was home from college a year before I went to graduate school out here in California. And that year they came back. And she's like, wow. What is?
Yeah, you're attracting them. They know that you're the restaurant. You're the winged wonder restaurant for winged wonders. That's truly.
It's so funny. And then I left, and then it stopped coming. So my mom was, okay, what I did worked. Okay, whatever. And then when they were she didn't live when I was when they came in the house. She was already deceased, but I'm sure she would have said, how are they getting you? They're great. They're not hurting anybody.
You're going to come back as not a hummingbird, as a ladybug. You're gonna, I swear, when you pass away, you're gonna come back and land on people. I think that's cool. Wouldn't it be cool to come back as a ladybug or a butterfly? That's, go looking for people who do the right gardens. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being back on the show, everyone. Dr. Amy Stark. Go to her website, dramystark.com. The books are all on Amazon, and check out all her other books as well, not just children's books. She's written books on self-esteem. You might have seen her on the Oprah show. Remember that? So thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for asking me to be on. It was my pleasure.
Let's go gardening.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Nature Connection show. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.